Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. This is another 5-minute finances video. My name is Drew Creekmur and I'm the Director of Advisory Services here at Creekmur Wealth. And today I'm going to talk about a concept that revolves around managing risk across your lifetime. And risk takes many forms. In my world, as a wealth manager, that could be investment risk, or it could be the risk of one spouse passing away, unfortunately, before another, and a family being left without an income, or a risk of someone becoming disabled or needing to go into a long term care facility. In my world, there's a lot of risks that are out there that could affect people's ability to achieve their big goals and dreams that they have and make sure that their family is well taken care of. So I want to start with one of the core topics that everyone spends a ton of time on, and that's investment risk. And when it comes to how do you manage that risk over your lifetime, there's a number of rules of thumb that are out there. Now, with any rule, what I will say is I view a rule as a starting point. It's not the end all be all. The 4% safe withdrawal rate, that's a starting point, but we actually have data that suggests that depending on when you retire, the 4% rule does not hold true. And so you're tying yourself to only taking 4% of your portfolio out because that's what the rule says. Well, you may be leaving extra income and extra experiences and time with family and things that you value doing on the line because you're not taking out as much money as you could from your investment portfolio. Now, managing investment risk is critical. And it's especially critical in the 5 years before retirement and in the 3 years after retirement. And the reason that is so critical is because of sequence of return risk. And what sequence of return risk is, in a nutshell, is effectively the rate of return that your portfolio has in the few years before your retirement, in the few years after your retirement, and when you begin pulling money out of your portfolio. That rate of return ultimately can determine a wide variety of outcomes as it relates to the total amount in your investment portfolio. And so if you think about it, we all know, just understand that, hey, we don't want to take a 20% drawdown on our portfolio 2 years before retirement or the year right after I retire. We all know that. But what a lot of people don't talk about is when you're younger, how much risk should you actually take? Now, some people in my line of work would say, well, hey, if you're 25 years old or 35 years old, you have 25, 35 years to retirement. So you should be 100% in stocks and be super risky. And while that generally holds true, the thing that's not being talked about there is that each individual is just that. They're a unique individual, and they have their own unique ability to take risk and to withstand the possible drawdowns that come with increased risk. If you're an individual that's 35 years old and it would make you sick to your stomach if your investment portfolio dropped 20%, well, you're someone that should not be 100% in stocks. You're someone that should be lower risk. There's a rule of thumb out there called the rule of 100 that relates to how much money should you have invested in stocks. It's a pretty simple rule. Take the number 100, you subtract your age from it, and whatever's left over is the percentage that should be in stocks in your portfolio. So if you're a 20-year-old individual, 100 minus 20 equals 80, you should have 80% of stocks in your portfolio. If you're 60 years old, 100 minus 60, well, you should have 40% of your stocks in your portfolio. If you remember back, I said, just like anything, a rule of thumb is just that. It's a starting point. And so what you really need to understand is what are your goals and how much risk do you need to take to achieve your goals? If you're someone that you have ample resources saved in your retirement portfolio, well, you could say, hey, I've already won the game. I don't need to take a ton of risk. I'm good with only making 3, 4, 5% a year. Or you could say, hey, let's section off a certain amount of my money to make sure I can spend as much as I need to in retirement. And let's get super aggressive with the rest of the money because I have a goal of leaving as much money as possible to charity or my kids or my grandkids. Ultimately, your goals determine how much risk you should take at each stage of your life. Another risk that quite often is not talked about enough is just the risk of the unexpected, the risk of someone passing away unexpectedly or becoming disabled or needing to go into a care facility. These are things that obviously are not fun to think about, and we hope never happen to any of us. But unfortunately, from time to time, they do. And because it's the risk of the unexpected, it's also a very unthought of or unplanned for risk. And I would encourage you all, if you're a younger individual, maybe you have a mortgage, maybe you have some kids, you need to have term life insurance. Term life insurance at a minimum is incredibly cheap. And the rule here is if you have a mortgage, take your mortgage plus 10 times your annual income And that is the total death benefit that you should have in lifetime or in term life insurance coverage. I would encourage you all, if you have kids or a mortgage or one spouse is only working, you need to get term life insurance coverage at a minimum. Now, if you're working in an industry where you may become disabled through your line of work, that's another risk that I would encourage you all to make sure you have covered through a disability policy. I've seen it too many times where people do not properly cover their risks, the risk of the unexpected, and that really puts their family and themselves in a really bad spot financially. So make sure you cover the risk of the unexpected. So, guys, big picture, when it comes to managing risk through your lifetime, you're able to take different amounts of risk at different stages of your lifetime. The first step is you need to understand your goals. And once you understand your goals, then you're able to determine how much risk you should take in your investment accounts to achieve those goals, or how much life insurance coverage you need to have to ensure your family is taken care of if something were to happen to you. Everything starts with a goal. And then the second level is understanding yourself and your level of comfortability with risk. And you got to be really honest with yourself on that one, because not totally understanding who you are as a person, your level of comfortability with risk can really put you in a bad spot. If you have any questions or want to walk through how to better understand how much risk is enough, that's where our team comes into play. We have individuals on our staff that have been in this industry for 10, 20, 30 years that are experts at walking through how much risk you should take or not be taking as it relates to your overall personal financial plan. So thanks for the time, guys. If you have any questions, we'd love to chat with you, and we'll talk to you all soon.